Try this again. So I'm rewatching the entirety of My Hero Academia for a project video, and I just finished season 2 and something about it stood out to me. The sports festival. The first 3 seasons of My Hero Academia are absolute peak. Of course, the sports festival has its pros and cons, but hey, here's what makes it a good watch. Fast forward, it's a little bit before the festival starts, and all the other classes are huddled around Class 1A. Eventually, Bakugo is like moving extras, and the best part about this is 90 to 99% of people on the screen right now are literal extras or will get minuscule screen time for the rest of the show. So not only was Bakugo being an asshole, but he was 100% correct. And I agree with him, bro. Get the fuck out of the way. So now the festival is beginning, and for some god-forsaken reason, they choose Katsuki Bakugo to do the pre-game speech. Bro telling everyone I'm gonna win and then giving the students and crowd a thumbs down? Absolutely diabolical, bro. At this point, Bakugo is undeniably the best character in the show. Despite his arrogance, we get probably the closest thing to a prodigy in the show. The debut of Shoto Todoroki. Todoroki is uninteresting verbally, but his actions are kinda nice, at least for what we're going to talk about here. So he kicks off the event by presumably freezing everyone and hauling ass. A lot of the students evade the ice, but more of them are impaired by it. Then he obliterates a 0-point villain, right? The 0-point titans from the entrance exams, just to show he means business. But if I remember correctly, Bakugo also deletes one of them out of pettiness, and then, I mean, this gets downplayed, or both of those get downplayed, because Yaoyorozu, the neglected, destroys 3 of them with a fucking cannon. But moving on, besides that, a majority of the obstacle course isn't noteworthy until the end. So Bakugo is pissed about having to split screen time with Nepo baby Todoroki, and much less the extras they dunked on. So he tries to slime Todoroki. Obviously it doesn't work, but it slows both of them down enough to let Deku reach the minefield. Deku then uses the octane grenade trick, alright, because he's tapped in like that, and wins the obstacle course. In case I forget to mention in the project vid, up until the finals, Deku is doing this virtually quirkless, as he has to save it for like crucial moments, right? You've seen the show, you know what I mean. Also, Asui placing 13th in a movement contest is insane. Episode 18 is where things start to get interesting. They end up having to do a 3-legged horse race, which honestly is a bad way to describe it. Basically it's a chariot competition. It's chariot jousting for headbands, but the chariot is your classmates. You'll fucking see it. This gets interesting because Deku is in an awkward position, because this is another event that he will have to do almost entirely quirkless, and I actually think he does the event entirely quirkless. Fortunately for him, he can't win this event like he did the last one by being underhanded and stealthy, right? Because his win in the previous event made him the #1 target for this event. Now, not because people thinks he's special, but after that event, if you haven't seen the show, everyone was given headbands, kind of like Afro Samurai, right? And basically the headband is worth a point value, and Midoriya gets a reasonable, very fair 1 million point headband. This headband is worth more than every other headband in the arena combined, and I did a little bit of math, might be slightly off, but I think there's around 80 other headbands in this arena, assuming everyone has a team of 5. So with that information, there's a multitude of reasons why a lot of people don't want to team with him, and even more want to rob him. So this gets interesting because it's obviously Deku's show, but Bakugo is undoubtedly the best or most interesting character from a talent and entertainment standpoint by far. But during this festival, Todoroki really starts to shine and starts getting pushed as a big 3 candidate, for lack of a better word. So the event starts and Deku immediately pulls evasive maneuvers. Unfortunately, off rip, his team suffers a mobility nerf due to Mineta. And I'm just like, I'm pointing this out because Mineta will never contribute anything positive to the story of My Hero Academia ever again. Besides that, Bakugo immediately goes for the gold, right? But unfortunately for him, Dark Shadow blocks his attack. And notice how this wasn't a grab attempt. He was trying to blow Midoriya's head smooth off. So as Bakugo is falling back to the earth, a series of characters, or several teams, approach Midoriya, including the side character of the arc, Todoroki. Kaminari and Todoroki use a combination attack to freeze everyone chasing Deku besides themselves, obviously. Shoto basically robs everyone within a reasonable vicinity of him and closes the distance a little bit with Midoriya's team. Tokiomi resets the fight, but nonetheless they end up getting cornered once again. We then cut to Bakugo getting robbed and bullied.
Being attacked by that sludge villain. You'll have to tell me about it sometime. It must be strange to always find yourself in the role of the victim.
Yeah, you know Bakugo ain't gonna let that slide.
There's no way out of this one. You're
He immediately presses the issue with his infamous right hand hook, and it gets weaved. And if you think that pissed him off, Mimic Tier here pets Kirishima like a cat, then uses Kirishima's quirk to block Bakugo's counterattack. And I know that looks sexy and all, but there's a reason why he's in Class B and not A. Speaking of people being in Class B and not 1A, I don't know how the fuck Mineta, Animal Planet, Acidity, and Belly Laser made it in the Class 1A. Moving on, Deku is exploiting Todoroki's left side, which is a phenomenal setup. You know, I wonder what happens. Does Deku turn the tables and use teamwork to beat the super talented prodigy Todoroki and teach him if you want to play in the big leagues, you gotta go all out? Or does Todoroki have to choose between his silly grudge and victory? Does he find a way to add Ida ults cause fuck main characters? So Ida gets them a freebie, but at the cost of his speed advantage. It's alright. Not how we planned it, but the tables have indeed turned. Deku can either chase, you know what the fuck he does. He wants that mill headband back. You're probably wondering, while they're over here boxing, what is Bakugo doing? No? Well, too damn bad. Bakugo goes for the throat again and gets blocked by a thick pane of glass. And despite many forms of glass being heat resistant, Bakugo punches right through it and robs Kakashi Jr.
No, that's not enough.
Bakugo literally starts beating Kirishima across the head while yelling to catch up to these dingleberries, right? Bakugo then uses science, yes, science or physics, same thing, to guard break Mimic Tier and rob his points back. I don't know why I capitalized we then cut back to Deku versus Todoroki, and he uses the wind pressure from One For All to guard break Todoroki in the politest way possible. He uses this opportunity to steal the 1 mil headband back, or what we thought was the 1 mil headband. Yeah, big lapse of judgment to not grab as many, you know, headbands as possible, but luckily for Deku, he's the main character and Tokiomi saves his ass. And for character of the arc Todoroki, instead of celebrating the win or realizing he just lost a 1v1 and put his team in a catastrophic position over a grudge that has nothing to do with them, he's sulking because he used his fire for 3 seconds as a reflex. Anyways, 1v1 tournament. Peak might be a slight overstatement, but it was good nonetheless. Alright, after kicking off with literally the only other hand-to-hand fighter quitting because of pride, he will never see the spotlight again. I just wanted to let y'all know that. So we get Deku versus Hive Mind over here, and saving the rant for another time, Deku hip tosses the shit out of him for an easy dub. The Vestiges did bail him out of a ring out, but Todoroki has the box elbow Spider-Man, and despite being the #1 seed, he gets grabbed by Tape Boy, and I mean he panic knifes him, and by panic knife I mean literally throwing an ice tower at him. Kaminari is an avid believer of equal rights, and he shoots 1 million volts of death lightning at this poor tree hugger here. Unfortunately for him, her vines are immune to electric attacks, and she just restrains him with this insane grab. And then let me check my notes for what happens next. Ida is a fraud, bro. Alright, bro is getting absolutely exploited and diddled by Hatsune, okay? If you watch the animated season of Vigilantes, you realize that his brother is a fraud too. The whole Ingenium bloodline thus far are scrubs. I don't know if y'all seen that meme that goes, you get captured and you hear Fang over Fang in the distance, and it's just people accepting the fact that they gonna die. From all but 2 or 3 scenes, maybe 5 scenes out of 7 seasons, if you hear anything Ingenium related, brother, you're cooked. My bad. Ida gets so much shit for me, and I want to lie and say I don't know why, but I genuinely don't understand why he's a hero, or much less a character after the Stain arc. Moving on, Acidity uppercuts the absolute shit out of Aoyama, and I'm not gonna lie, he deserved it. I'm gonna keep it a beam with you. Momo proves there's a difference between being educated and being smart, as she gets absolutely bullied by Tokiyomi. She didn't stand a chance, but given her background, you'd expect it to be more of a fight. Now, the legendary fight. And one thing I like about this is Ururaka immediately gets to business and starts pressing Bakugo. And I want you to appreciate this, because this is the extremely rare occasion that Bakugo doesn't immediately rush his opponent, alright? So despite living in Japan, Bakugo is very familiar with the stand your ground law, because he does not move an inch when he starts blowing shit up, okay? One thing I love about this fight is Ururaka does not give a fuck. She tanks these blows and keeps rushing over and over and over. Just sheer persistence. But eventually, some things must come to an end. Actually, all things must come to an end. Anyways, so when the fight started, Ururaka immediately gets low, okay? To keep it a beam with you, I thought this was purely aesthetic, like the Naruto run, right? But if you were smarter than me, you probably thought she was making herself a smaller target. But no, while that might have been part of the equation, she was actually forcing Bakugo to hit the stadium. Then it happens. She puts her hands together, and just like Frieza, Bakugo is like, the fuck are you doing? Then he sees a second metaphorical sun reflecting off of the metaphorical sea when Ururaka drops 300 kilograms of concrete shards at him. Pause. I just want you to appreciate the flawless execution of this misdirection and pincer. Now, under normal circumstances, Bakugo has two choices. Both of them lead to defeat. But before I unpause, there's one major flaw in the scenario. Bakugo isn't normal. Yeah, so Ururaka loses the fight, but much like Vietnam, nobody gives a fuck because she made it farther than we expected, you know what I'm saying? And anyone else in this tournament. Nevertheless, I also want to mention Ururaka, even though she's dilapidated and withered, Bakugo was still hesitant and borderline scared to attack her. And given how Bakugo interacts with literally everyone else, this is mad respect. Todoroki tries to one-shot Deku, but he uses the air pressure for one for all to block it. Todoroki tried it again and gets the same result. Guess what? You're not gonna believe this. Todoroki tries again and gets the same result. So after breaking all the real fingers in his hand to stop the ice prison, Deku gets rushed by Todoroki. Todoroki does this super exaggerated, comically telegraphed Superman punch and misses. He follows this up with an ice spear that's totally not cheesy at all. Deku makes his first mistake when he absolutely demolishes this attack with a super smash. The mistake being he sacrificed the arm opposite of the fingers he just broke. By some miracle, Todoroki survives this, and I want you to pay attention to the screen because I'm going to replay it again. He survives this. Deku calls him out. Todoroki tries to act cool, but he's literally shivering, okay? Todoroki tries to end the fight, but Deku force pushes him just far enough for you to think there's consequences to doing the same thing over and over again. But after this, Deku is like, now I'm in that mode. Todoroki sprints at Deku. He then does a hop to close the distance. Deku immediately sends a 5% all for one jab straight to the stomach. And after this, they just start swinging. And by them, I mean Deku, because I'm not gonna lie to you, Todoroki is absolutely overwhelmed, alright? Anyways, now, I want to remind you, Deku has a broken hand and a broken arm. And Todoroki is stuck dodging. Anyways, Deku is like, fuck everything, and uses his cheek to shoot an awful one blast at Todoroki. He follows that up by headbutting the absolute shit out of him. And at this point, he should have a bruised lung at bare minimum. Deku is working this man. So Deku starts beating memories into his head. Like, you know what I'm saying? After another 5% straight to the chest, you know what I'm saying? He starts getting flashbacks, you know what I'm saying? I just want you to know, Todoroki is supposed to be a good close quarters fighter. and he's getting worked, okay? Deku and Todoroki go for the decisive strike, and the most interesting part about it is Midnight has to rip her clothes off to activate her core. Deku and Todoroki absolutely eviscerate the stadium. Deku gets ringed out. Great fight, honestly top 10 in the show, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be giving Todoroki shit for this in a different video. Oh shit, I forgot, Todoroki fights Ida, and honestly, Ida's best showing, but he ends up in an ice prison, alright? Bakugo versus Tokiomi, you already know. Bakugo immediately presses the issue, alright? Forces Dark Shadow to solo him in the air.
It don't work.
Massive fire punch. Sorry, Bird Boy fans. It's me. I'm Bird Boy fan. Bakugo realizes Dark Shadow is sensitive to light, and it was over from there. So Bakugo lands and immediately uses the brightest explosion he can muster. And when the dust clears, he has Tokiomi by the beak! He doesn't even use his beak! You know what I'm saying? Bakugo, that's fucked up. He didn't even have to restrain him like that. Now, here we are. The final battle. The climax of the arc, right? Katsuki Bakugo versus Shoto Todoroki in a win by KO, ring out, or restraining situation, right? Should be madly entertaining. Should just be metaphorical bullets, alright, baptism by fire type of shit, right? Todoroki tries to instantly ring out Bakugo. It doesn't work whatsoever because Bakugo is literally exploding his way out of the ice mountain. Todoroki does his lunge attack. That gets weaved. Bakugo palms Todoroki like a basketball and throws him across the arena. And this is how you know Bakugo wants blood, because his quirk is in his hands. He could have blew his shit smooth off, but he was like, nah, twin, I gotta enjoy this. Anyways, Kacchan gets over aggressive, right? Todoroki grabs him with his left hand. So instead of burning Bakugo, he just redirects him. At this point, he just starts shutting down, you know, and put himself in catastrophic danger when Bakugo turns himself into a literal artillery shell. So Bakugo does what he does. He literally knocks Todoroki out. And I'm not gonna lie, if Deku gets threatened and told that if he doesn't master his quirk and keeps breaking his bone, he's gonna be permanently disabled, right? Todoroki has some sort of consequence for standing there and taking a heat round to the face!
You could put my ball.
Anyways, that's the Sports Festival, 5 to 6 episodes of peak. Again, peak might be a little bit of an overstatement, but hey, it showed a lot of potential for the show. And if you want to see someone nitpick this season, there's a video on screen. It may or may not be mine, keeping it a being with you, but honestly, I really like the season 2 Sports Festival, and I was going to talk about the entirety of season 2, but I'm not going to lie to you, I saw my notes for the damn Sports Festival, and I was like, yo, this is taking too long. But hey, hopefully I get this Todoroki video out before this, so there's a little bit of a buffer, and then we'll jump onto this, and then yeah, I'm gonna start getting into season 3 soon, right? Things of that nature. But anyways, until we meet in that video, remember, if you know man, because we know we up next, sponsored by Atari, and I'm out.